So at this point, I think everyone has heard of visualization, but I wanted to go over some details around how mental practice or mental rehearsal can really benefit you, and ways that it doesn't. And I also want to start with my own experience of how visualizing helped me get better at something. So I'll start with my own experience with visualizing or mental practice. So when I was in high school, I went to a performing arts boarding school and I played cello. And since I was a senior, I had a solo recital that I had to play an hour of music memorized by myself for a grade. And I practiced a lot when I was at that school, 5 to 8 hours a day, every day. And it was really close to the date of my recital. It was about a week out, and my hands just gave out on me from the hours and hours of practice that I had put towards my instrument. And I freaked out at first because I could not hold the bow. I couldn't push my fingers down on the strings. And even during that week, I had to tape a pencil to my hand during my regular school classes so that I could take notes for class. There was no way I could grip a pencil or close my fingers. So I was really worried about being able to do this performance by myself. But my cello teacher told me that I was going to practice all the things that I needed to practice for this last week, but I was going to do it mentally. And I didn't know if it was going to work, but I knew I didn't really have another option. So what I did for that entire week, for about 8 hours a day, I would get my cello out, I would sit as if I were about to play, and I would rest my hand on my instrument, but not push down because that hurt, and I would lift my bow as best I could, but again, zero pressure, and I would have my music out, and I imagined myself practicing those pieces from the music that I knew I still wanted to get work done. And I know a week out doesn't sound like a whole lot of time, but eight times 6, 48 hours of focused, intentional practice would make a really big difference. So but that's what I did for hours and hours and hours. I sat there and I did not play a single note, and I imagined hitting those spots correctly, the ones that were still tricky for me at the time. And it was finally the day before my recital, and I knew that it was now or never. I needed to try and see if I could actually play again and see how well my hands were working and see if I had made any improvements over that time. And it was so exciting to see how much of a difference the mental rehearsal visualizing had done. There were several areas within different pieces that I was playing that were really difficult, and I was so surprised at how well I was able to play them now. And the week off, plus a lot of, icing and things like that, had really helped my hands, so they weren't in anywhere near as much pain. So I actually was able to do my recital, and the recital went really well. But anyways, that is my experience with visualizing or mental practice. And ever since then, I've been a really big fan of it, which is why I wanted to share it. But there are a couple things that make mental practice more effective and some things that I don't think are often clarified. So that's what I wanted to go over next. There is a lot of research that supports this, but I want to talk about one other piece of information that I think can sometimes get mixed up with all of this. Years ago, I remember listening to this episode on NPR where they had a group of people try to, you know, the magic trick where you are able to like whip a tablecloth out from underneath a set table and all the dishes still stay on the table. So that was the video that people were watching. They were watching somebody do this successfully, and they, the researchers had the viewers rate how confident the person was in being able to do it. And they were able to rewatch it as much as they wanted. And what they found was that the more that people rewatched the video, the more confident they were about being able to do this trick. However, when it actually came time to doing the tablecloth trick, there was no difference in the people's ability to do it. They couldn't do it. And the reason they couldn't do it is because they didn't know the details of what they were seeing. They recognized what was being done, but the finer details of the way you hold your body and the way you flick, and I'm just making these things up, but I know there's a lot of finer pieces to this. If you don't know the details of what you're practicing or mentally rehearsing, you're not going to get anywhere near the same benefits. If I, with my experience with cello, had been trying to play a piece that I had never played before or seen, or let's say I hadn't played cello for how many years at that point? Like 10 years or more. If I was brand new to the instrument and was trying to play that difficult piece, mentally rehearsing wouldn't have gotten me where I ended up. But because I knew the details of what I was practicing, I knew exactly what note came next. I knew what type of bowing I needed to do with it. I knew how it was supposed to sound. I was actually able to mentally practice. And so that's what I want you to keep in mind with mentally rehearsing something. Mental rehearsal is great, and I do think that practicing, there's many things that you can practice and get a lot of value just by going over it in your head. But the more detailed that you can get in this visualization, the better. And one way to do that is to really try to focus on all of the senses. What are the sensations that your body would have? What are you smelling? What are you hearing? What are you seeing? And when you visualize, make sure you're doing it from the first person perspective, not somebody watching you do the thing. It can feel a little bit overwhelming to try and get all of the details of a visualization, but once you have the visualization and you've locked down the details of all of the sensations that are going on in that moment, you can reuse that same visualization over and over and over again. So it's a lot of work up front loaded, and then it gets a lot easier. Get as vivid and cover all of the senses as you can. And make sure that you are doing it from the first person perspective, from how you would be seeing things and interacting with things. And lastly, really try to focus on visualizing things that you actually understand the details of. I want to elaborate on one more thing there, which is that, let's say that I wanted to go to a party and I wanted to mentally rehearse showing up and feeling confident. I don't know all of the potential interactions that I'm going to have or where people are standing, and so I'm not able to actually practice that detail, but I am able to practice certain actions that I do, like the way that I breathe when I walk in the room. Am I confident? Do I meet people's eyes or do I look down? Do I find where the, like the drinks are or the snacks and head there first? You can plan those types of things, and mentally rehearsing how you want to feel or how you want to carry yourself in a situation is also really useful. I hope this helped as far as understanding a little bit of the nuance of visualization. Like I said, I have been a huge believer in it ever since I had to do it back in high school, and it really made a big difference for me. But I'd love to hear what you are going to be mentally rehearsing or visualizing. So that's all I got for today, and I'll see you next week. Thanks.